Today's session, we're going to talk about Sage Intacct construction payroll reporting, what options you have and how to create your own and modify existing payroll reports. And we'll go in and take a look at the new tables that are available to report off in the system. So let's first go in and take a look at the new payroll reporting tables that you have available to you. Best way to see them real quick and make sure you have the proper security to them is to go into the security roles that you have established in your instance. So if I go into company roles, and you have several different roles that you have set up here, but go into the roles that you need to have access, that's going to need to have access to the payroll files for reporting purposes, and take a look. I'm just going to go into the administrative role for now, but you could have a payroll role and so forth. But if I go into administrator, I'm going to go over to subscriptions here, and you're going to be looking for the construction payroll area. And if you click on permissions, you'll notice as far as what permissions you have, your typical permissions, as far as time entry and processing checks and union setup. At the top section here, you have all these new reporting tables that are available to use in the system now. So you want to make sure that at least your users who need access to payroll reporting have at least list and view selected for these tables. If you're going to be modifying and adding reporting, you want to make sure you have these all checked off here. So if you see here, there's payroll report time card, PTO activity, tax information, pay modifiers, check information, gross pay, time card detail. All of that is available now for reporting inside Intacct. So once those are turned on here, you'll be able to get access to them in the Custom Report Writer and the ICRW Report Writer. Okay, so you'd click Save. I'll just click Cancel out of here. Now the other thing is, those tables aren't updated automatically in the system. So there is a function that needs to happen during the payroll process to make sure that data is current and updated as you go each payroll period. So where you do that is in payroll, part of the process, after you've imported time, in the check processing area, you'll notice there's a button over here called Send Reporting Data. So what that does is that sends data from this check record over to those tables and populates those tables that can then be reporting on. I suspect at some point this might become automated, but right now, once you've processed your checks, you can hit this Send Reporting Data and that'll update the data. Now you can do this at any time and you can do it multiple times. Okay, so for example, some people like to come into here once they process the checks but haven't approved them yet. They like to send the reporting data. Now all that data is over there to be reported on as pending payroll. Okay, so you can do that as much as you want. So what we'll do first is we're going to go in and we'll do an example of that. And we'll go in and we'll import some time. And then we'll talk about some scenarios on how to get time reporting out of the system before and after checks have been generated. So let's just go into my entity level. So we'll go into Timberline General Construction. And I have a file already created in Excel. So I'm going to go right over to my time area, my time card area. And I'm going to import some time. So I'm going to click Import Rows. I'm going to go browse and find that file. I'm going to click Update Data. And I have a timesheet for week ending 9/17. Actually, I think it's 9/16, but we'll upload that sheet. And we're going to click Continue here. It'll read it, map out the columns. My columns are already mapped. So I'll click Review. So now you'll notice I have some time in here and there's no problem rows. You can see it's blank. So I'm good to go. I can go ahead and click Continue here. And I can submit and import some time. It imported 40 rows. I'll click Save Records. Okay, so this comes in handy when you're if you want to import time just through a spreadsheet, or if you're using a third-party mobile app or something like that, time can import in automatically. So at that point then, now what happens is, and the one caveat here is, now you noticed where the send reporting data was. It was in the check record. So right now there's no way to send that time data over to those tables yet because it hasn't been created as a check record. Okay, so you have a couple options here. There is some reporting built in to the payroll module itself. And what some people do is they'll generate an export file to Excel off of that data, which you can do at this point. So at any time, I can come into this reporting button here, and I can run an Excel sheet off of checks, off of time card export, and I can do a start date, end date. So let's just do that week, which would be Monday to Saturday. And you can just do pending time. We'll just hit export. So it doesn't generate an official report. It generates an Excel file that you can open up. And I will open that up over here and show it to you. And this will bring over all that time detail that we just imported in. And, the only thing that's missing in here is subtotals. So, this is one downside to it. I mean, you could sort it. We don't have to give you an Excel lesson, but you can sort it by employee, then work date, something like that. And you could get the data in the way that you want them in the system. Okay. So you can do that out of the box before you even approve the time in there. You can also go take a look at that time right in the time cards. So if I go back to the time cards and I pull up that pay group, which was weekly hourly, and pick my week, which was the 16th, and view timesheets, I can get a total here by employee of the time and an overall total here as well. Okay. And then you could drill down and see detail for each line item and each day if you want to in the employee record. So you have that. The problem is you don't have access to creating your own reports off of this time until it's sent over as a check. So another option, and what some people do, as they get that time, you can go ahead and you can approve this time here at any point, and you can do it multiple times. But if I hit approve here, that makes that time eligible to get a check record. So you might not be ready to do your official processing yet, but I want to get that time over to a check record so that I can run some pending reports that I built and that I subtotaled my way, certain things you might want to see a little differently. So what I can do is I can come into here and I can generate checks. You have to go through that process. It's weekly, hourly, and pick your correct pay period date. We'll pick the 16th here. And I could generate checks. And that's generating a pending check record. And we can delete it. We can modify it. We can redo it as many times as we need. But now that these records are generated, okay, they might not be all the time yet. We're not really concerned with amounts. But at this point, I could send reporting data. And once I do that, I'm going to have access to that data over in that reporting area. Okay. So what you don't want to do is approve the checks yet until you're really ready for your payroll processing. Then you can approve the checks. But I can hit send reporting data now. This might take a minute or so. And that's going to go update all those tables, and it updates them as pending time, pending checks, pending time. So when we're building reports, you can always filter and sort just on the pending statuses. And then what happens is once you continue on with your payroll and you take that check through the process here, the approval, the posting, the paying, you could then hit send reporting data again, and it'll change the status of that time over to approved. So this says, okay, you've been synced. And now we're ready to do some reporting. So let's go take a look at that next. So what we're going to do first is let's just go and we'll go through the custom report writer. and we will let's create a pending timesheet. All right. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go over to reports. I like to build all my reports at the top level. Being out of payroll, you're going to be able to do that. So I can go to reports, custom reports. Oh, I could have hit the plus button as well, and then you have your list of reports, so you can modify existing ones. I'm going to click add here. And when you click add now, you're going to want to look for some those payroll tables that we saw earlier. Now, they're not going to be necessarily in alphabetical order, so just scroll down and keep an eye out for them. They'll have payroll in the name. And we will eventually see them in here. And I think I probably passed them. Sorry about that. And it may be because I am at top level. So I may have misspoke there for you. I'm just going to look one more. Oh, there they are. Nope. Okay, we're good. All right, so you'll see here's all those tables that we looked at in the security permission area. So this is going to be the biggest step for the process in creating this report, is starting with the right table. So you always want to start at most detailed, or one of the most detailed areas of the system, and then just like the other intact areas, they will create the related tables for you automatically. So if I want to start a time card report, and you know what, if you're not sure, just click on one and try it. You can always back out and pick a different table to start with. It's very wizardy here. So some of these need to be labeled a little bit differently. There's report time card, report time card, report. It's kind of a little tough one to figure out there. But, if you go through there and preview these tables and see what's in there and just get familiar with them. So if you go to payroll report time, we're going to start with that one. And you could select an audience or report type. And then just using the typical functions in the custom report wizard, we're going to click next and just go through the wizard now. So now it starts at the top, payroll report time card. And just like the other areas in the system, you have these related fields that you can use. So you're going to be able to get to the dimensions, project, cost code, customer, vendor, item. And then you're going to be able to get to the other payroll tables that they've linked for you automatically. So let's just say we want to do a typical time card recap, maybe summarize it by employee. So let's pick the ID. So at the top record here, what might I want to see? Well, maybe employee ID, project, cost code, and let's see here, work date is a good one. And now there's some other coding on here that I just don't see on this table. So that's where you can get to the other record. The time card report is actually the more detailed of the two. So you could have also started with the time card report table and then gone to this table up here. But in this case, now you'll notice I got lots of other fields. I got the check date. I'm going to keep going here. I'm not going to pick too many things. Let's see what else we got here. Check date. We have total hours would be important. We already picked work date, so some cases they're going to be in multiple levels, and maybe if I was doing a union, I want the trade information, but we'll leave that blank. Now, some other fields here that we need that we didn't see yet. Maybe we want, cost code ID. That could be a little scriptic as far as what is the actual description of that. And we might want cost type as well, but typically it's just going to be labor, so maybe we'll leave that off for now. Now, where you get to all of the names and descriptions is going to be down at the related dimensions. So what I like to do, because you can get lost in all of these open tables, is when I'm done with the table, I'll close it back up. Okay, so I always leave the main one open, but as far as all these related tables, I'll close it back up. Now I want to get the project name. I got the project ID, but I want the project name. So I'm going to open up the project dimension. And now you have access to all the fields that are in that project setup screen. And one of them is the project name, which is right here. And just so you notice, if you ever want to do any drill down, if you want to get to the project right from this report, you want to select a field that has the up arrow here. That means you can drill down. So for example, I already picked project ID, but I might want to use this project ID if I want to drill down and get to the project. So I'm going to turn that one on, and then I'm going to turn that off because I don't need two columns of the same name. Okay, so let's say that's all we need on the project. So I'm going to close that one up. And then I want the cost code name for sure, because I don't know what the IDs are. So I want the cost code name as well. So I'm going to expand that. And there's actually a name for the cost code as well. Okay. So we got that. We got the cost code name. We got the employee. I think we have all the information we need. If you leave something off and you want to come back, you can always do that. So that's enough for now. We'll click next. And now it's going to take you through your typical wizard. You can calculate your own columns. So maybe you want to add a couple columns together, do a division. You can have all this capability, and you get this for more information on this. Check out some of our overall report designer classes, and we'll go in more detail on these calculated columns. But we're going to skip that for now. And all I'm doing is hitting next. And now it's saying, well, on a report, what order do you want them to be in? Well, I want the employee first. Then let's do it in check date, work date, project name, cost code, and then total hours. Okay. What I like about this too is you can rename this. So if I want it to be just ID, I can say ID here. If I want this to say employee, you can change the headers here. Work date, project ID, project name, cost code. That looks good. Okay, so you can do that. And all I'm doing is dragging these up and down. I'll click next. And now I'm going to pick the columns that I want totals and subtotals on. So I want them on the total hours field. So that was on, if you remember, that wasn't in the report time card. That was in, that was in the payroll report time card report. It's a long one to say. And if I scroll down here, I'll find total hours. I want to total that. Now, one field I didn't add to this is gross pay. Now, this is more of a pending time report, so I don't really want to see the gross pay on this one. I just want to see hours, but that is something you can add as well. So we just want to do total hours, and that's all. So now I'll click next. And now it's saying, okay, well, now how do you want to sort this thing? You only told me what order you want the columns in, but how do you want it to be sorted? So I do want it in employee ID order, ascending. And then I want to see it in workday order, ascending. And then I want to see it by project and then cost code. So we'll say ascending, and we're good. Okay? So you can pick your sort. Hit next. You could filter. So in our scenario, maybe we only want to see where the check is pending, right? So if I go, where is that? Well, I can try the report time card, but I'm not going to see a status here for the check. This is just time entry. So you will see there is two other tables that are related that we can use, the report check summary. One of these is going to have the status on it, and there it is. So I went to the report check summary, and I'm going to say check status equals pending, and you can type it in. So you do need to know what the exact value of that is. So a lot of times I'll add that column first just to see it on my output, and then go back and add the filter later. Okay, so you can say check status equals pending, and that'll just give you time that's hasn't been approved yet. Now, in this scenario, we're going to leave it blank because we're going to filter by date. So we're going to leave that blank for now. So we don't need a filter on our design. So we'll click next. Now you can get grouping. So do you want to get subtotaling and grouping? Yeah, we want to group. So we're going to turn on groups. Next. I want to group by employee ID. Now, when you do a grouping, it shows the headings of the groups by the column you pick for the group. So how do I want to group this? Well, I want to see the employee name on the top. It's going to be easier for me to read. So I'm going to go to the employee dimension and I'm going to look for it there. Now, I don't think I'm going to see the name there. The name's a little trickier to get to. So if I go open up the employee dimension, you'll see now I have access to a contact that opened up. And if I click on that contact, now I can see contact name, which in this scenario is going to be the employee name. And I don't think we added that on our report anyways, but we'll have it in the group, which is all I need here. So I want to group it by contact name. And then, you might want other groups. You might want employee, then work date to get work date totals. You might want employee, then project to get project subtotals by employee. However you want to group this data. I'm just going to do it by employee at this point. So I'm going to click next. And what's the order of your group? Well, we'll just do it in alphabetical here, ascending and so forth. Now, by default, you can set the report to show details or not. So it can come up as an employee summary to start with. In this scenario, I want to see the details and I want to call it this. So let's call it payroll time recap. Okay, we'll just call it payroll time recap. Hit next. And you can also have this be a chart. So I can have, the sum of the total hours, the employee, and I can group it by the employee name. And we can see it in a graph or put it on a dashboard, and you can see if you're missing time by anybody based on the graph if you want. Next. Okay, so additional prompts. So right now, we have the employee information. What we don't have on there is the check date or the period end date. If we run this thing right now with no filters, it's going to show us the time from the beginning to the end. So we want to either run this off of, well, you could also run it from a work date, start to finish work date, greater than or less than. I would recommend running it off of the check date or the period end date. So if I open up the report check summary, there's check date. And if I take a look, I'm going to look for the pay period end date. So I could run it off that as well. This report will run it off the pay period end date. So I'll check that. And then I'll click next. Okay. You might also want an additional prompt for a project. Maybe you just want to see the time for one project. You can add that as well. And then we'll click next. And now we're at the last step, and we're going to name it. And this is what it's going to show on your menu in your custom report menu. So we'll call it payroll, same as the heading of the report, time recap. And we'll add it to the menu. And what menu do you want to put it on? Do you want to put it in payroll? Do you want to put it in projects? We'll put it in payroll. And once you say status active here, which it defaults to, it'll be available to be used. We'll click save. And we got an error. Hey, there's already a report named that. Oops, sorry, I must have already done one. Payroll time recap. So let's go back and let's give it a different name. So it takes me back to the beginning, but you can skip the steps here and you can go right to save and add. And let's call it, I'll use my company initials, BCS payroll time recap. Try it again, save. Okay, so it takes you back to the custom report menu. And now you can go look for it and you can see it right here, BCS payroll time recap. If I need to edit it, make different filters, I can click back to edit here. If I want to run it, I can click run. And let's see what we get. So now we have that time in there. We have pay period from and to. So that was pay period ending the 16th to the 16th. Portrait landscape, show details. Here's your chart information. You get a chance at all that again. And let's click view. Let's see what we get. So we should get all that time that we just imported in. So you can see here, it looks like Chris has 80 hours and we have 74. Okay, and so forth and so on. And there might be some other time in there as well. But you can kind of see here's a great recap of the payroll time information even before we've processed payroll. Okay, and now you'll notice because we did that project ID at the with that arrow with the drill down, I can then also get to my project screen from that as well. But I don't have the permissions for it, so you gotta make sure you have the proper permissions for it as well. So that's an example of creating your own little report. And the beauty of this report is now it will also export to Excel, but now it has your subtotals in it already. Okay. Now you also have the ability in the system to modify the existing reports. Now you can also do this for an ICRW, exactly what we just did. You can build a payroll report. You have access to those tables there as well. You can do an ICRW report as well. Now this Intacct does provide you with a ton of default payroll reports, and you can see those under interactive custom reports. If you don't see these payroll reports on your menu, that just means they haven't been loaded up for you yet, and you should contact us at help@bangerninc.com and we'll make sure we get them on your menu for you. But if I go into interactive custom reports, it's alphabetical and they'll be labeled with payroll. So you could search on them, but I'm going to go down here to the second page and you'll see all these ones. Any ones that you see that are going to be from the construction payroll application and have payroll in front of them, those are the ones that were loaded up by Intacct automatically for you. This one here was one I created for my own use, but you're going to have payroll check activity, check pay modifier, check detail, registers, labor distribution. If I go to the next page, you have payroll tax registers, union reporting. Okay, this is one you'll probably want to do some tweaking on, and also workers' comp reporting. So any of these reports, you can open up, modify, tweak them inside the ICRW, the Interactive Custom Reports. So for example, let's go into the labor. Give me an example of that. Show you how we do it. We'll go into the payroll, labor distribution, CRE recap. Now, what we do recommend is that if you're going to make a modification to one of these designs, is that you save it as and make it your own. Keep the one that came out of the box intact and there in case you need to go back to it. You can make it inactive so nobody uses it, but keep it there. So when you go into this report, what you can do is this. I want to modify this report, so I can go into it and click edit. Once I go into it, you're going to see a button to the right. We'll wait for it. Close this up on my menu here. You'll see these two buttons over here. So you have a save and then you have a save as. The second button, it's hard to read, it might pop out here, but that second button is a save as. You click it and it will pop up and ask you, what do you want to save it as? So usually put your initials in front. I like to put an X in front of my design until I know it's good to go. That tells me it's not a working design. For this scenario, I'm going to use that same abbreviation. We'll call it BCS, Payroll Labor Distribution. Hit OK. And now I can mess around. I could tweak, I can add, I can change things, I can change font, whatever I want to do, test it, make sure it's good to go, and then still have the original intact in case I need to go into it. So just like the custom report writer, we've already picked the main report, and this is payroll report gross pay. And now you'll notice here, just like the custom reports, you have your related objects. So your related objects here are all those other records we can get to, and you could expand on this. So there's the same kind of area. Because we started with the gross pay, it's given us access to time card information and check information. So we really have access, and employee, really have access to a lot of information in the area. So, they have some information on here. Let's say you notice this report, it's by job, it's by project, and it looks like we do have totals by project, but I want to see subtotals by cost codes too. So what you can do is you could right mouse click on that column in the Refine tab, or you can do it in Define as well, but you can right mouse click on the column, and then you go down to cost code here, and you notice you have a bunch of options. So I want to say show subtotals after values. And so now you'll notice I have subtotals by cost code, then by job. So if we find one that has a couple different cost codes, here's one here: final cleaning total, and then you have insulation total, and then you have the grand total, San Antonio warehouse. So you can do that type of stuff. You're going to be able to do some things like this: period end date. You might want to make this right justified. So that is going to be over in the details. So here you come into here and you hit edit view. And now you go find that period end date column. And this might take a second to open up. And down here, you'll see all of your different columns, and there's that period end date report. And now I can click on the little settings wheel, and I can click on column properties. And once I'm in there, you can do some different things. So right now, the cell is horizontal alignment, vertical. The horizontal, I want to make it right justified. Looks a little better that way. And maybe the date, I want to, you can use any of the options here. So like this one, I want the 4-digit year, and I always want to fill the 0 in, so I'm going to use that one. Okay, so you can click that. So you can make these little tweaks here on the design. So now you see that just shows a little bit better as far as the dates, and so forth. So you can make those types of tweaks. And then when I'm done, I'll click done over here. And now because I've saved it already as BCS, I can just hit the save button. Okay. So you're going to have the ability to, edit these existing designs, but I would recommend saving as. And then, you can move these around. So maybe, maybe you want pay before hours or something like that. So you can come into here and you can move these around. You can move hours over there and stuff like that. So you can do all that information. Okay. So you can do all that. Okay. So I'm going to hit save again. And now if I go to my interactive custom reports, I'll see my new list, and it'll have that BCS labor distribution. Now I can run it. So here you got some prompts. So let's do that same one. So let's go, what was that? That was 916 to 916. And here's the one catch. So they've included a condition here that's only showing approved checks. So if we run it now for that week, we won't get anything. So what we want to do is we want to add or edit it. So we want to include pending, okay, just for this week. So let's hit pending, and we'll do view. And it should show us that week with a recap. And so there's that report that we just, still the time is pending on there as well. And now it's by project totals. And now we have cost code totals as well in there. Okay. So really the biggest takeaway from here is that the payroll tables, make sure they're refreshed and that you have specific access to those tables that you can get at now. And it's going to take a little tweaking and hit and miss target practice here on what tables you actually want to use and find where the information is, but they have provided pretty much all the columns that you're going to need to design off of a payroll report. You just have to kind of make it your own and tweak and find it. But I always recommend starting with an existing one if you can, and then modify an existing one. Or if not, go ahead and start simple, like this: payroll report, gross pay, give it a name, and then create the report, and you're off. Now that you have what you need on the payroll side, go for it, test some reports. If you have any comments or questions or issues that come up, make sure you contact us directly, help@bangerinc.com. And we look forward to talking to you again in another session. Thank you.